holiday and really try to be all ninja-like.
Well, one of the things it hasn't done in New York is it hasn't been through finance again, so we have that in our favor.
Yes. Can everybody hear us? A simple yes or no.
You're actually breaking up for me a little bit, but I don't know if that's the Hangout.
Okay, so they can hear us in the militia channel.
Okay. The other two channels are fixed now.
Sorry.
And it's the vaping dog who chimes in at the last moment. Just go over some of the things that are going down in Philly. There's a vendors meeting at Liberty Vapor. That'll be on.
That's next Saturday at 3 o'clock at Liberty Vapor in the Lansdale store.
The Lansdale store. Okay, and then there's there is an event with us and Americans for Tax Reform that'll be on Sunday. We don't have the specifics on that yet. And then on Monday up in York at Azure Vapors.
And that's at 1 o'clock also for vendors.
Is another vendor meeting. So if you are in the Pennsylvania area and would like to find out what we're trying to get together for the state of Pennsylvania, please come and visit us. We'll be glad to catch you up. So, you have any other issues that are open there or not?
No, that's what I was saying. Is it's very slow at this moment. We have not gotten any word on anything active locally anywhere. I mean, here myself, we have early bill announcement in Texas, and we have 4 bills that have been introduced for 2015. Now, luckily, 2 of those bills were introduced by the state senator. That's my district state senator. So I'm currently going through my local area. I'm recruiting all the vape owners, the vape shop owners, and trying to schedule a meeting with him so that we can discuss his proposed bill and discuss with him, because in the information that we've been getting from him is he's trying to go after big tobacco. And as we know, the majority of the people that are in this industry that we deal with are not big tobacco. And I think we need to go in and explain to him that the biggest players, and I say players because as a consortium or as a coalition, we control more of the market than big tobacco does. And he's maybe under the wrong assumption that by writing these bills that he's hurting big tobacco, when really and truly they are hurting the small businesses.
That's always a great point to bring up to these guys as they go forward. There's also been a pre-file on a bill in Virginia. The language on it was very rough and very hard to understand. So I imagine that bill will go through a few changes before we actually see it. And then in the state of Michigan, you've got Senate Bill 1080 that's still hanging around. Richardville is the senator who sponsored the bill. He is a term-limited guy, so we're keeping a real close eye on that, as it has to still go through Senate Finance before it can be put to the floor for a vote. And the hope is during the lame duck session that Richardville gets too busy to actually get that bill reworded and back out. So that'll help that go away. But in the meantime, you know, like we've said before, it's an expected thing in the 2015 legislative session that we're going to see tax bills throughout the majority of the states. So keeping your attention on anything that comes up new in your state senate regarding that's a good idea. And it kind of brings up that other issue that we talk about frequently. There's a a book called The Citizen Lobbyist, and one of the things that it points out very importantly is always running to the Capitol to try to change legislation that's in progress is sometimes your senators will see you as a different person if you're willing to come and talk to them on those things that you agree. So with the new legislative session, that gives you the chance to look at those bills that are going through, and if there's something that catches your eye that you want to support, it's a good idea that you contact your senator in support of these other bills, so that when you do go to them in a differing case, you've got the chance to talk to them on a one-to-one level. You're not always looked at as the opposition. So getting that relationship established is a good thing.
Well, I mean, and that just, goes back to, we don't want to be active only in vaping issues. We do not want to be seen as one-issue groups. Everybody in here has opinions on other issues, and you need to voice and be active on everything, and not just be the vapor guy. Yep.
Because you really, when you get pigeonholed like that, then when you do come across with something, it's tainted by all of the other activists that have come before you that have only focused on a single issue, and you don't want to look to be that crazy and unreasonable guy who the only thing they care about is e-cigarettes.
Yeah.
So, same thing applies to the local level. Getting involved at the local level in your local city council. Again, you want to make sure that you're not looked on as that one person who has that one issue. And we've been fairly lucky. The states that have been quick to push the civil or the local bans, states like Massachusetts, Minnesota, California, Texas. We've seen a few in Florida. We've seen a few in Louisiana, but by and large, we've not seen a lot of these city governments getting involved in this issue at this point. But keep in mind, the media plays a big part in that. As you see articles come out that show different aspects of this. Like, for example, an article that has been getting a lot of traction lately. I know everybody's seen it. There's an article that says there was a study done in Japan, and that study shows that vaping, at least in one study, was 10 times more harmful than cigarettes. That has been completely debunked. But the problem is it's a headline, and you've got to remember this is a 30-second world. People read headlines, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed there was a question in chat about a particular company and some credit card things. We're trying to get some information on that. Once we know some real solid information, we'll be able to give you some. Well, I will tell you that we have seen before a number of issues that came up in the state of Oklahoma about a year ago about some credit card transactions that weren't being processed properly, and the root of that problem actually turned out to be the code for the shop itself. They were not being coded correctly as a vape shop. It was being coded as some type of a cigar retailer, and they were expecting a tax code that would be going along with it. So
yeah. No, the thing about that, the 10 times more cancer-causing agents or carcinogens.
Yeah.
That headline. I went through earlier today because Dr. F has been able very quickly to contact the Japanese researcher, find out what they did, look at their results, and rebut that whole article. Now, the only problem is Dr. F's rebuttal has not been circulated anywhere.
I haven't seen it published yet. Have you seen it published?
The actual Japanese
The rebuttal.
research. The rebuttal is up on his website. It's
Okay.
published on it's on the Dr. F website, and I put a link. I posted in Facebook today about it because it just shows how easily the ants and our enemies are able to spread their opinions and their stories, and how little our stuff gets spread around. I just quickly did a little Google and got 20 different articles citing the Japanese article that we know is not true. That and if you read Dr. F's response, you can see quite easily how he did it, how he was able to do it. He's got charts on there. It's easily understood. But the fact of the matter is, people don't go and try to rebut an article when they read it. The normal person sees that headline and they go, "Oh my God, they've been lying to me," or "I've got to go tell my friend who's a vapor because he's going to die," instead of doing just a few seconds research. And I'm putting the link to Dr. F's rebuttal in the chats, because people need to read it. People need to understand it, because when they go out into the world and they're vaping, somebody's going to come up to them and go, "Oh, you're going to get brain cancer," or "You're going to die because you're vaping," when all they've read is a headline.
And that kind of goes back to that. You and I have talked about this a number of times. How when we read something and it's so outlandish, and then a lot of vapors read it and they'll run tell somebody about it, but that's where they stop. And even when they get the good information, they need to go back to the original article wherever they read it, and to post the correct rebuttal on it. This is
Right.
an easy form of activism that almost everybody can participate in, of countering bad information with good information.
Right. So, like I said, I posted 20 different articles in the Facebook post that I put today. Every one of them has a comment section, and every member of the Facebook group should go click on these BS articles and put, you have the wrong information. This is the right information, and copy a link of Dr. F's, to Dr. F's response, because. And be nice about it. Don't be argumentative about it. That's just going to get your, and some of these people may remove your comments. Most of these are news sites. They are not, big tobacco or, anti-vapor sites. These are, newspapers, blogs, magazines, their websites. So go and spread the word, because all they're doing is reading an article that they read.
They came off
and
a service
forwarding it on. Yeah, it's an AP or Gannett or any of those other services are spreading it, because it's news, and that's what they do. But they don't actually go through and try to deconstruct the article. So it spreads like wildfire.
That's the other, one of the things that I've noticed, especially in Michigan newspapers, is if you come in and you make a comment, and that comment has that hurt tone, or a any type of a provocative tone to it, they do get responses. But the problem is you get this very interesting accusations of you being a zealot, of you being brainwashed, and all this stuff, because instead of coming in as a reasonable person and posting something in there that makes great sense and is factual, instead they believe that you're coming from nothing more than emotion. And don't get me wrong, passion's a good thing, but we need to remember the forum that we're in and how to get the best response. And sometimes displaying a lot of passion, a lot of emotion can be negative to our efforts.
Right.
So That's always so. It's always a real good idea to try to go in there as logical and as sensible as possible. Let's talk about some of the old news that has gone on. A lot of people aren't aware. We had a pretty good run in Baltimore. The Baltimore ordinance, when it actually came through, I'll put the article that I'm talking about in here. It still was a ban, and a lot of people have issues with, the fact that it was a ban. But the Baltimore ban was a little bit different from most. When the Baltimore ban came through, the target of the places that were actually banned was within 50 feet of a playground, schoolyard, athletic facility, or swimming pool. It also required that e-cigarettes be placed behind the counter in stores, so that salesperson intervention was required in order to complete the purchase. So you can't just go in, pick up whatever it is off the rack and hand it straight to the cashier. Now, the reason why this particular ban moved to where it was is we had some good cooperation between Altria, and we had some good responses from some of the local businesses there, the casinos and taverns and stuff. And one of the things that they said was, in any tavern, that as long as there's a conspicuous sign posted that vaping's allowed, it will be allowed. Not saying that if there's no sign, it's okay. They say there has to be a conspicuous sign. And this is kind of a good situation for us, because what it does is it allows those businesses that do support our ability to exercise our personal freedom. It allows us that ability without having, an idea of a sweeping ban in any establishment, because there might be a child there who might see us vaping, and after all, it looks like smoking. It's always their favorite argument. So I think this was good legislation at the city level. I think it was smart. I think it protects the youth, and I think it gives us the ability to be able to vape with no problem at all. So much better than the original bill, which was almost a complete ban.
Well, yeah. We have another article from the same source that you have posted, from the Baltimore Sun.
Uh-huh.
And this one is an op-ed piece by a doctor in Baltimore who is an OBGYN.
Yeah.
And this doctor goes into some detail about how vaping is bad and it should be regulated like tobacco. It's just funny to me. We discussed this a little bit on our radio show for Friday, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I did think it was funny how somebody in healthcare, but you got to realize we are all compartmentalized in healthcare. Robin's a nurse, I'm a therapist, and somebody that specializes in delivering babies and checking out girly parts writes a really massively negative article about a pulmonary issue, and doesn't really know the parts that she's talking about. I can guarantee you, I know quite a few doctors that are specialized. The orthopedists, after they graduate med school, they focus mainly on the part that they are working on, and they do not remember a lot of the stuff that they learned in school about parts of the body that they don't work on anymore. And for this OBGYN to write this scathing article about how horrible vaping is, when she doesn't know the science and she doesn't remember the anatomy, is kind of funny.
Well, when you read the article that she wrote, one of the, there's only two things that came to my mind as she was saying is, first off, contradictory to everything that we've seen for pulmonary responses with vaping. She cites saying that it's different, and we've not seen any issues when it comes to the arterial response to vaping.
Mm-hmm.
So any claims on causing stress in the heart system, circulation system at that point are a little off. The other thing too is I did see one version of her article where she directly attributed nicotine to low birth weight.
Right.
Now that's an unproven, as far as I know, untested claim.
Right.
That claim, to be specific, the claim that the medical community has made on that is that cigarette smoking will impact birth weight.
Right.
Not nicotine. There was never.
Right.
I mean, so I can appreciate someone trying to bring forward the right information, but so many people forget that there is that incredible difference between the product that we use in standard cigarettes, and a lot of times. Go ahead.
This was they're quoting or they're citing the reasoning. She's pissed off because the Horseshoe Casino in Baltimore got an exemption.
Right.
And that's so that they could compete with the Maryland Live Casino, which is outside of the city in Arundel County. And now, how many children do you know are hanging out at casinos? So they can't use the Save the Children argument.
Nope.
Which is kind of funny. I just I don't understand what her stake is in this, other than the fact that she's trying to get her name in the press, maybe.
Well, we've heard frequently that, and I'm just saying things that I have heard. I have no proof of any of this. That American Lung and American Cancer sometimes will go to doctors to try to press their agenda forward.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, to my knowledge, American Heart has jumped forward, and they've at least made the statement as a last resort that e-cigarettes being the only being the last resort instead of continuing to smoke is a good thing. And notice it's the way they phrase it. It's the last resort, and those are just stuck on a desert island, and maybe that's the only thing you've got left. But they have their agenda, and public health has never favored this product.
No.
So, but I did like the idea that we ended up getting some very good response out of the Baltimore bands, and I know that Ron Ward from CASA spent quite a bit of time there working on the legislation that happened there in Baltimore, and I thank him for his time and his efforts, because it's always a good thing when we have a representative that jumps forward and tries to do something very, very good. So. Do you have anything you want to add on that one, Knock?
No. Baltimore was a win as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
I think Robin went to sleep on us.
I'm having technical difficulties. I'm awake, though. You know what I was going to say? You were talking about, like, our kind of products being behind the counter or locked up or whatever.
Right.
We have in our area, and you guys have heard me talk about it before, it seems like there's a convenience store on every corner. And what I've noticed in one particular franchise, I guess I'll call it, is they have these things on the counter, like when you go to pay. You know, sometimes they have, like, on the counter, they'll have a couple of packs of Marlboros or whatever, and there'll be like 2 packs at special prices, but you got to be right there to get them in front of the person selling them. And there's a couple of stores in my area that have, you know, if you're at the store, like a department store, and you're going to buy like a pair of earrings or something, and they have them in this big tall thing that like spins around, and it's got like plastic doors that they have to unlock for you to open it up. They have them in those, which I think is, I mean, that's fine to me, because, you know, if we're sticking to that, you know, nobody under 18 thing, and the bottles are small, they'd be easy to grab and stick in your pocket or whatever. I think that's a great idea, and I thought it was pretty cool the first time I saw it. However, when I asked the lady behind the counter, out of curiosity, if she had any idea what that stuff was, she didn't. She didn't know what it was. She didn't know what it was for. She just knew she had to card people if she didn't think they were 18 to buy it, but she had no clue what the stuff was.
Well, I know here in Texas, the cigarettes that they sell are already behind the counter, as well as all the cigarettes. So,
yeah.
You know, that kind of regulation I welcome, because they're already doing it, you know?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
As I've traveled around, it's about a 50-50 split as to whether or not. So, I can't tell you that. You know, I think it's a good idea, because we definitely need that youth prevention interdiction, you know, where we have that, at least they have to ask for it.
Yeah,
So.
I think that's fine.
It's too bad Alex was not here.
Why is that?
Well, we were discussing an article about the big meeting in the UK, and all the good news that was coming out of that, and he was there. So I would have liked to have talked to him directly about that.
Yeah, the first-hand answers. Yep.
Well, let's talk about something that's maybe not going so well. Up in Canada, you've got this Bill 45 that is it's gaining some steam, and the reason why I think it's good for us to talk about it is we need to realize how far some of these bans can extend, and looking at them over in our Canadian counterparts, where there's a completely different climate towards e-cigs, it's probably a good thing. Public health there has been very, very active over the last year in trying to ensure that a few things. Now, some of the things that this Bill 45 will cover is no sales to anyone under the age of 19. No listing of flavors.
Yeah.
Okay, very interesting that they would go that direction. No vaping in vape shops, though, and so then again there would be no vape lounges. Excuse me. No online sales out of Ontario. No indoor vape meets in public places, and this extends also to any paid venue or rented space. No vaping in a vehicle with persons under 16 years old, and no showing the consumers how to use or troubleshoot the devices.
Wow.
No display of electronic cigarette hardware, and no displays of e-liquid with or without nicotine in it. Those are the things that are all contained within that bill.
Wow.
Now let's think about what this would actually do to your normal vape store. Okay? First off, one of the reasons why so many people enjoy going to a vape store is you got that tank that you just can't get working right. You know? And not that anything in vaping is extremely complicated. Well, maybe some of these crazy coils are hard to wrap and get stuck in the right spot. But I mean, think of it, when you started, think of how easy it was to mess it up. I mean, if it's got an air control valve on it, maybe it's not in the right spot.
There's a lot of stuff.
How many times have you actually seen somebody? I mean, you have to think way back here. You know, how do I feel this? You know, do I just take the top off and fill it? Where do I put the liquid? You know, that wouldn't be allowed. Um,
Well, just look at it. If you are a new vapor and you're going from an ego to a more advanced type mod, your first line of inquiry is the vape shop where you bought it.
It's one of the advantages of going into a B&M,
So, you're going in and you're saying, hey, I want, that K-Fun thing, and I want this mod. And the first thing they do is they offer to fill it, if you buy juice. So now they can't do that. Now they can't go through and make sure the coil is good for you. Now they can't do anything. And I know a lot of vapors here locally. I know they go into the store and they tell the guy at the store, can you rebuild this for me at a 1.4? Because nobody would ever go below 1.0. Can you rebuild this for me? And the vape shop guy rebuilds 20 or 30 coils a day for customers because they don't know how to do it. So now all of a sudden, and I'm sure there's people in Canada that do the same exact thing. So now you can't go to the shop and have the guy coil build for you.
Okay, and that kind of leads also to leaving a big hole in our industry in that there is, there's responsible use. So there's some safety factors, like what types of batteries that should be used, things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Even simple stuff, that you don't think about. Like my first mechanical was a GU, and if they hadn't shown me that I have to move the pin, because you have to, depending on what you're using, I wouldn't have known. So they had to open it up and show me, if you're using this, then this is what you do with it. If you're using that, then you got to do that with it. I mean, it's as simple as that. Or even putting myself out there. How many times have we been in Hangouts and I've said to you guys, I don't know why this won't work, and you'll walk me through what to do with it. And I've been vaping for almost a year and a half.
Yep.
We all have stuff we need to learn, and that should be our best resource for a place to learn from. And I have a question for you about the no vaping inside. Are they not allowed to sample the juice while they're there either?
They are not.
Vaping.
Jeez. Another advantage of a B&M. You get to try your juice.
Wow. And one of the reasons why, I make sure we understand this is you have a lot of, on the international scale, a lot of lawmakers that are trying to make decisions about vaping. And if they take a look at laws in other countries without regard for all the other conditions that exist, sometimes they think that a law in another country, well, if it's good enough for that country, it's good enough to be implemented here.
Exactly. Oftentimes, if they see something is successful somewhere else, and it's not just vaping stuff, as long as it's not an environmental thing, because obviously we're not following the world's lead on the environmental stuff, but oftentimes we'll see all sorts of legislation go through or attempt to be pushed through that is obviously mirrored from another country.
And if you look at some of our environmental laws, a lot of our environmental laws are mirrored from existing regulations in the EU right now, because we have not moved forward on that the way they had. So, again, that's another reason why I'm very, very concerned with these laws. There are also some interesting messages here that are sent in this particular style of legislation. Now, let's think about what if you were to walk into a store and there's no display of hardware, there's no listing of flavors available, there's no display of the e-liquids, and there's no one there that can tell you what the devices do. So you walk into a store, what are you supposed to do? I mean, you would have to know the exact product you were after. You'd have to know the exact nicotine strength. You'd have to know the exact flavor that you wanted to walk up to the counter and go, oh, by the way, yeah, I need to pick up a Nautilus Take, an iStick, and a bottle of cherry cream uh, vaping, 6 milligram liquid. You know,
Mhm.
like you're really going to know that if you're someone who has just put down a pack of cigarettes for the first time.
Now the only way that I mean the only way vaping worked for me was to be able to try different things. And without being able to go into a shop and finding a juice that I like, you're spending a lot of money on stuff, and you get home and all this stuff sucks, or I like this one, but I don't like that one, and it doesn't do anything to help people quit smoking.
Yeah.
If you can't vape in the shop to test out what it is that you're buying.
And I mean, I get that there's a lot of online reviewers and stuff, and I'm sure you can surf the whole internet and find out who likes what. But to tell you the truth, I personally have never even found a single reviewer that I agree with on how a juice tastes. So,
It's too subjective. You have to try it for yourself.
I mean, in just the three of us, I know that Joe likes things that I don't like. I like things that Joe don't like. I taste things in a juice that Joe doesn't taste, so forth and so on. So yeah, you cannot go by online reviews. There's a very popular juice brand that every time they release juice, it sells out in minutes. I tried some of their juice and I was like, this is sucky, but people love it. So you cannot go. Whatever works for you does not always work for me.
and so as I look at these kind of bills, this is very seriously a way to close the industry down for Canada completely.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, this appears to be just for Ontario, but I mean, how one province in Canada goes, they all do. So yeah.
Yeah, Ontario is actually one of the more liberal too. So that's an even scarier thought. We've said this before. When we relate back to the stuff that's going down in Western Australia with Vince. We're very worried if that particular legislation goes through, because then it becomes model legislation throughout Australia.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of those, we would prefer this not become model registration or model legislation for Canada. It'd be a very, very dangerous thing as we look across the border. Yeah, and for me, I live in Detroit, which means I'm like across the bridge through the tunnel. That's it. I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
So something to think about as you look at stuff that's going on in other countries. That's something that you need to be aware of. Speaking of which, did anyone have to see what the final numbers were on Vince?
No, actually.
Last I heard was 90,000, but that was a few days ago.
That's good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's impressive.
Let's see, Knock. Where's that article that you and I were talking about?
Well, we were talking about multiple ones. The big one that I gave you.
Yeah.
Or that is in the Atlantic.
The Atlantic. Okay. Let's go ahead and post a link to that one.
All right, here we go.
The final number on what they were raising for Western Australia to help Vince through his case.
For legal funds.
Expenses, that's what it was.
Yeah. And the last I heard was 90.
I know the target was 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Knock uncovered this article that was in the Atlantic, and it's a very interesting article. It's a very long article. It talks about kind of the history of how nicotine and cigarette smoking was handled throughout the years, and actually leads all the way up to what the current climate is. Sometimes it's good for us to take a look at what has happened so that we can understand what may happen, what the particulars are, along with how things are going to go. And some of it fairly easy to understand when we go back and we take a look at just the general fact that way back from '64, they made the determination that cigarette smokers have a 70% mortality rate, and that it was linked to lung cancer, emphysema, and heart disease. And they found correlations between low birth weight with newborns, and that was kind of the single study that woke America up right there.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, I mean, it kind of had been a heyday for the cigarette companies. They had contracts with the military to the point they supplied cigarettes to the military for everybody overseas. They had advertising on television. And as these first reports started coming out, tobacco's response was kind of interesting. And this is where a lot of people get confused, is as these reports started coming out, the tobacco industry didn't respond by going, oh, we need to do something to help prevent this. In fact, they took some very interesting tacks where they would go through and they would say that particular cigarettes were healthier than others.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this was open advertising that they did it in. This is also where we came into the low tar and light cigarette age, where the idea was that they had modified the cigarette in such a way that it wasn't as harmful to you as it was before. Obviously, the government and public health looked at these types of things and started to make some adjustments in how cigarettes could be advertised, how cigarette perception that would be given to the public in that time. And that continued on through the 70s. In fact, the first legislation and stuff that started coming out that really impacted this were in the early 80s and 90s, where they started moving forward into a health-related campaign. And one of the big things that happened during that time was the tobacco settlement.
Right.
Now, the tobacco settlement, from when it was filed to when it was actually implemented, it took almost 20 years. And it was a tooth and nail fight. Now, I know a lot of people are confused when our advocacy efforts, the way they come out, why CASA takes the stance that they do, why industry is separate from consumer. But this has to do all during that time frame. And a lot of people aren't aware of some of the games that were played, where tobacco went to a media group and created this consumer response for smoking. And though it was funded by tobacco, it was labeled as a grassroots effort group that came forward and tried to make changes to the legislation that were going on for the non-smoking laws and things like that. Now, you may wonder why that is so significant to us. As many times we have heard some of the ants and stuff refer to us as astroturfing. Now, that term is directly from the actions that Big Tobacco took during that time frame. The difference being that our movement is an actual grassroots movement. And this is why CASA has been very specific on keeping consumer efforts separate from industry efforts. So just kind of give you some heads up in there. Knock, is there anything you want to bring on any of the takeaways that you wanted to bring up to this point in the article?
Well, just the the definition of AstroTurf is the outward appearance of a grassroots movement that is actually funded by industry.
Right.
And we've been very successful with our social media blitzes that we've done. But we were in one at the beginning of the year in Chicago, and immediately we are being referred to as AstroTurfing based on the success of our Twitter campaigns and things like that, because obviously nobody's going to do what we did for free. We must be getting paid for it.
I missed that memo somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Where's my paycheck for that?
It must be with mine.
And you know, the tobacco harm reduction, a lot of people don't know that initially that harm reduction was kind of created in the 50s. Prior to 1950, most cigarettes didn't have filters, or no cigarettes had filters. And then the introduction of the filter on the cigarette was one of their ways of saying that they were trying to help reduce the harm. So, you know, harm reduction has been around. It's evolved over the years, obviously. And now we're kind of not even considered an active solution. Most agencies don't even understand why we are trying for the harm reduction, because they still have that whole quit or die thing going on in their heads.
Yeah, you know, and this does lead to the issue of, as we frequently refer to, the use of nicotine in a recreational form that is not inclusive of all that crap that is in a cigarette.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you know, the combustible tobacco, the byproducts that happen from combustion. That stuff's just not good for you.
Right.
And when you remove that component, it seems to be the difference. Now, there were some attempts by Big Tobacco early to go to a non-combustible system.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't very well received. I don't remember the name brands. Do you remember the brands?
Well, the first one that was commercially spread around was called Premier.
Okay.
And that was I think, you know, the new capsule that's come out now is actually updated version of this technology. So it was
Grandchild of that technology.
Right. And then obviously then RJR had the Eclipse, which was out in like the late 80s originally, and the new product that they're coming out with is essentially an updated version of that, the Eclipse. I'm trying to remember the name of that one. The Voker.
Voke.
Yeah, it's called the Voke.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one is actually, technically it's the same technology that's just been expanded on or updated. And I was reading a different article a couple weeks ago, and they were talking to the president of RJR, and she has, I guess she has a supply of the original Eclipses or whatever, because she said that 10 years ago she quit smoking using the Eclipse. Now, this is the president of one of the largest tobacco companies in the world who doesn't smoke anymore, which I couldn't work for a company that sold a product that I knew killed people if I wasn't also using that product. You know. that would be like Hunt's ketchup, the president of Hunt's ketchup using Heinz.
Seems a little crazy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Now, in the last 5 years, a couple of the things that have changed in a major way is the products that have come forward that are being used by us and by many other people. They didn't come sourced from tobacco, and you've got a few companies out there that never were tobacco that have products on the market, like Enjoy. And when they came on the market, a lot of people, especially those people that are in government, they don't realize how boldly Enjoy came onto the market. That they, in their original moves, came on with the intent of making tobacco obsolete.
Right.
Combustible tobacco obsolete. And some people have just finally been made aware of all the things that Enjoy has done for this industry over the past 6-8 years, all the way from their involvement in the Cetera case to spending millions of dollars in the last few years over helping us, and when I say us, I mean vapors, to have a product that hasn't been over-regulated or legislated.
Right. Well, the Cetera case is called the Cetera case because the company or the actual corporation for Enjoy is Cetera.
Yeah, it is.
So, I think people would have understood or would have known more about their involvement if we called it the Enjoy case.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people out there that just for some reason have it in their head that Enjoy is owned by Lorillard or owned by Imperial or owned by British American, and that's simply not the truth. They've been fighting the FDA and they've been fighting these battles since the Cetera decision. I mean, the original lawsuit that ended up being the Cetera decision was not even originally filed by them.
No.
That was filed by Smoke Everywhere. And over the course of that lawsuit, obviously Cetera signed on to the class action suit against the FDA, and then Smoking Everywhere went out of business.
Yep.
So, they've been there from the very beginning, fighting the good fight and helping us as vapors, whether directly or indirectly. Originally they didn't have an open system, and they were fighting for the cigalikes. And then over the years, they've stepped into this sort of segment of the vaping industry, and in the last year, they have been super helpful.
And then we see it even in their product lines, in that even now they're going into the open market with their artist lines of juices, and they're actually going to they have a CE4-like electronic cigarette they're putting on the market that'll be available in convenience stores. So
yeah,
they are growing alongside us. Going back to THR, one of the bigger things that came out in THR, where we get a lot of the bulk of our information, is a little over 5 years ago in Sweden. There was a push to start using a new product there of snus, and a lot of people aren't aware of what this is, because in the U.S., any chewing tobacco has been treated, any tobacco product used orally, whether it's chew, dip, or snus, has been treated in the same manner. Okay? The information that has come out on it is always the same, is that it causes mouth cancers, it causes this, it's treated in generally just as tobacco or just as cigarettes are. But for those of you who have not paid attention to this product, over the 5-year study that they've got, first thing they noticed right away was the smoking rates in male adults dropped dramatically to less than 5%.
Mhm.
And Sweden right now boasts the lowest lung cancer rate, and also the lowest death rate for smoking-related cardiovascular problems. And this is attributed a lot to the use of the snus product in Sweden.
Mhm.
And the reason why a lot of these numbers are specific to the male population is apparently in Sweden, snus didn't take off with the female population. I know, Robin's going, "Blah."
Yeah, because whenever we talk about it, I say it's gross.
Well, I mean, people have in their head the idea of chewing tobacco, and you always see those pictures of the guy with the the bibbed overalls and the greasy looking shirt, and he's putting his chaw in his mouth and
Spitting.
spitting. And I think people kind of equate anything that you put between your lip and your gum as that.
Yeah,
And this is obviously not the same thing as that.
still gross.
No, not at all. One of the things that I did find in the article I found extremely interesting was the guy who invented the nicotine patch. Was a guy out of Duke University. In addition to the nicotine patch, he also developed a device that would take nicotine directly into the lungs. And it uses I don't know what the substance is. It's pyruvate or something like that. I have no idea what the heck that is. Maybe Knock can come up with something on that.
Give me a minute. I'll find it.
Anyway, but when he took this to the pharmaceutical companies, they didn't want it. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of those things where the idea of an inhalable nicotine as an NRT product, even back at that point, was something that the public health area did not want. They didn't want to have that available because, yes, Biama. So the idea is they at that time were still focused on nicotine being the particular evil in cigarettes, not so much as the other portions of what we know to be part of the habit, the behavioral, the mechanical portions of it. And that's why frequently you see when people are being treated with NRTs, you'll have that high failure rate. But of course, public health has an answer. We can give you pills and we can give you counseling to compensate for getting rid of those mechanical and behavioral habits that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of us who have successfully quit using electronic cigarettes, we know the truth behind that. Do you have any idea what that stuff was yet?
Pyruvate is a chemical that's created in your body due to glycolysis. So
like a byproduct, it looks like.
Yeah.
I'm reading it too.
Yeah. So one element or one atom or whatever of glucose is broken down into two pyruvates, and they actually are burned by your body to create energy. So maybe his inhaler A would help you with your nicotine problem, and it would give you more energy.
So the propylene glycol is just an advanced or a further down the chain or further up the chain molecule of that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Essentially.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
perfect sense to me.
I'm going through all the chemical analysis.
Yeah. I'll do that later. There's a lot there to read.
Like I said, this is a very long article, and there's some, like I said, some very good information in there. A lot of good stuff about the differences between nicotine reduction and smoking. And then the one thing I did want to bring out is at the end of the article, down towards the end of the article, they kind of target the end game solution for public health. And public health has become very, very prevalent on this end game solution of creating a tobacco-free generation. Now, I find it interesting that they have chosen to make it a tobacco-free generation, not a nicotine-free generation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this kind of echoes to the point of, yeah, they're going to take all the steps they can for smoking and anything that looks like smoking, but they're still very willing to accept nicotine being used via the patches and gums. And I think that might be a point that we can use later as we go forward, because if the game is not about nicotine and that's the only thing that's in the juice, we're good to go. So just some things to think about. The end of the article does specifically say that there doesn't seem to be a reason to raise taxes on e-cigarettes and smokeless tobacco products, because it seems to be that those who want to quit and make at least some choice shouldn't be taxed for it. And I'm sure everybody agrees on that, at least everybody in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So just some things to think about as we go forward. So take some time to look at that article. I think you'll enjoy it. It is a long read, I will warn you. Noct, is there anything else you wanted to point out in there?
Well, I mean, this is something that may or may not be. This article does mention how our e-cigarettes are being modified to deliver other things other than nicotine. And, the perception that we have in the public cannot go in that direction. Even if it's legal in your states, this is going to be something that we're going to have to deal with on a federal level.
Right.
And federally, it's not legal. And we cannot have, a senator standing in front of Congress, or in front of the Senate, excuse me, or a representative standing in front of Congress holding up an e-juice bottle going, this has marijuana in it. It can't happen right now.
Yeah, you bring a real good point. When the San Diego hearings, it kind of surprised me, even as e-juice vendors and electronic cigarette users came forward and were talking, they were given a very specific time limit on how long they could talk and what they could present about. But the one mother who came forward holding up a CE4 saying that she pulled this out of her son's room and it contains marijuana was there for 10 minutes talking about that,
Mm-hmm.
the evils of it, and it really kind of stuck in my craw, because how do I say it this way? It's her son. Where's your parenting skills?
Right.
Okay? It's not the state's job to parent your child. It's your job to parent your child. And maybe I'm a little bit jaded by that because I'm 50 years old and my kids are all grown and gone. But hey, that's just, I mean, it's my thoughts behind it.
Yeah. It's just that I've seen more of this CBD stuff coming on. And, you know, there are online juice stores specifically for e-juice that specialize in this stuff. And we're here screaming, you can't put anything extra in your e-juice, you know, other than your flavorings, your PG, your VG, and your NIC. And then now we have to deal with a whole new group of people coming into the industry pushing something that is in that gray area. You know, these CBDs are 50 state legal right now because of a legal loophole, and we can't, I mean, we really do not need to have this come and bite us in the ass 6 months from now.
Well, yeah, Robin, you have something you want to add?
Yeah, I did. You know, the marijuana, obviously, that's an issue, and you know, that's a whole separate story. But what about the companies that are saying they're putting like B complex and vitamin C and all kinds of supplemental stuff in there? That's an issue for us too, you know. And I think we need to pay attention to that because, you know, that's actually a whole separate issue. Then you get into the supplements, and the FDA is really going to come in and step on that kind of stuff. You know, so not just like the marijuana, which obviously, you know, you talk about the parenting, and that's a whole nother story, but this supplement stuff, you know, and I've seen people say they put caffeine in and B complex so it's good for you, and melatonin, that will help you sleep at night, you know, and all those things that, you know, have become health food store kind of supplements that everybody says is good for them. Not so sure that stuff should be getting blown into our lungs though, you know.
Well, there's a lot of debate on absorptions and things like that, but there's also
Absolutely.
a very key component there that anyone who's thinking that might be a good idea is there's already a you know, massive phone book style number of regulations dealing with supplements, and the supplement industry has gone through the last 5 years has been wrestling with the FDA. They for the last 5 years about effectiveness, storage, shelf life, production values of supplements. So yeah, mixing those two industries is very hard. I know one of the ones that we've got in our industry that the discussion on is the whole tobacco alkaloids. And you know, I'm not an expert here on that, and I have to refer to those people who have the ability to test whether or not the whole tobacco alkaloids are dangerous to us or not. That's something that needs to be looked at very closely, and I know the extraction processes that they use, they tend to say that there is no issue with them, but then again, there's another group within our industry that says whole tobacco alkaloids, naturally occurring ones, can happen, but there shouldn't be any added to it. So, anytime you've got those questions on the table, it's, I mean, that's where, as a consumer, you've got to do as much research as you can. And as a consumer, you know, one of the things that we think about is doing business with those companies that we feel are furthering us. Those companies we feel that or have knowledge of that are doing certain types of testing. So I think my answer, and my opinion only here, I'm not saying this is anything for the militia or anyone else but myself, is if I've got an individual who says that whole tobacco alkaloids are a good thing to have in my juice, then show me some documentation to prove to me it is. So I mean, that's just my opinion. And the same thing goes for anybody who wants to put caffeine, melatonin, B12, or
Whatever. Yeah.
Fruit Loop juice in it, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this goes back to a tactic that was used by tobacco companies back in the day, where they would put stuff in into their tobacco to adjust the flavor or whatever. Oh, and by the way, it might make it more addictive. They didn't do the research before they adjusted their product. To be a responsible individual in this industry, before you put something for sale in your store, you should test it to see what it's going to do.
I notice where you put the onus there is on the retailer, not on the producer.
Well, I mean, if I had a shop, if I was a shop owner, even if I didn't manufacture the product, if I was selling it, I would test it. I'm the one that's selling it. If I mix juice, whether the fucking flavor company tested their stuff, if I'm selling it and putting my name on it, I'm testing it.
Which I think's the right answer.
Well, once you're selling it, you're taking a lot of responsibility on yourself anyway.
I'm accepting the liability for the sale of that product. You know, and in the chain of custody, of the lawsuit situation, they're going to come after the person that sold it to them first.
Right.
Yep.
They're not going to go directly to the company that sold me the flavorings.
Yeah, the defense of, well, they told me, probably won't hold up in court.
I wouldn't think. I would think they would say you should have known.
No.
You should know what you're selling.
And, you know, this is a completely different discussion, but the stuff that we put in our juice has never been tested. The flavorings have never been tested for inhalation. They are not marketed for inhalation. They are marketed for food grade usage. And if I was going to, like I said, if I was going to be a responsible business person and I'm mixing something in a lab, let's assume they're using a lab, I'm still testing that.
Yep. I have to agree with you there.
Because
Smart
Flavor
thing for the
Apprentice is called Flavor Apprentice. It's for flavoring in food.
I'd argue that with you if I was in a courtroom with you, just so you know.
Go ahead.
I would, because when you smell something, okay, when something gives off a fume of some sort, what you're inhaling, truthfully, and why you smell it, are molecules of whatever that substance is. Therefore, if there's food coloring in it, you're inhaling food coloring.
Fruit flavoring, you mean?
Or flavoring, coloring, whatever. Anything that's in that juice, or that we use in food or anything else, okay, you've already been exposed to if you've been exposed to that in any other substance.
Exactly.
You know? So if it's apple flavoring and you make a pie with artificial something apple in it, you've already inhaled that stuff anyway.
Inhaled in certain quantities.
Yes, absolutely.
I guess the issue comes is when you go to the concentrations that we use for the exposure during a vape, because that is a bit more concentrated than perhaps sticking your nose on top of an apple pie.
Right, which is why somebody who's really allergic to peanuts can't be near it, because they can't smell it either. It doesn't just have to do with eating it. They can't inhale that either, because they're still getting some of that stuff in their system that way. Make sense?
Uh-huh.
That makes sense.
Anyway.
You never know where we're going to go.
No, you never know. Sorry.
We broke that topic.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I digressed.
Throw a little bit of a sideways topic in, going back across the ocean. Our friends over in Germany have taken a stance similar to the U.S. For those of you who may not be aware, for the majority of the European Union, there are two paths used for e-cigarettes, one being a medicinal path, the other being a recreational path. And German high courts have gone through and now ruled that the liquid use for e-cigarettes is not on the medicinal path, that it can be sold freely. It is a recreational product.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit different for what we've seen from the EU. This was a reversal after city authorities banned this one particular lady in Wuppertal?
Wuppertal.
Wuppertal?
Germany.
That's pretty good.
Like that.
So in Germany, we may be seeing some very interesting responses as that, being that they have said that e-liquids are not on the medical side. So,
Yay.
just a little more information.
Well, and that one is good. I mean, that one makes e-juice freely available, and you don't have to go to a pharmacy to get it. So it's we like this.
Mm-hmm. We like this, definitely.
It's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, very good thing. Let's see, where else are we going to go next? Oh, let's go to this one. This is a article that was in on the Vaping Cheap website. And 5 years in Germany, socialized medicine, but not a lot of holistic approaches. That's interesting. The reason why I brought this particular article out is, as you go down looking at it, it focuses on some numbers that were released by the CDC that we've all talked a little bit about, but the CDC has recently announced that smoking rates are at the lowest that they've seen in 50 years, and youth smoking is down a stunning down to 12.7%.
Mm-hmm.
And
Cool.
of course, the comma that we see after that always is, but electronic cigarette usage is increasing. Now, this is at a very small number, so any increase in it looks like a dramatic increase. The other thing that they're reporting is that multiple tobacco companies are reported that their revenues are dropping. This is something we've been talking about for a while. Seeing that they're again, one of the extended ideas behind that is, as the sale of e-cigarettes increases, the sale of conventional cigarettes is dropping, and this is going to lead to some issues on tobacco bonds and things like that. We've talked about that before. And keep in mind also that as those numbers go down, numbers in the state coffers go down, and they're going to start scrambling to try to recover money.
Yep.
So, and it is a game of recovery. This same article brings out a very interesting view of the advocacy efforts, that they're being very effective in the vaping community. I would like to point out that they recognized both Greg's efforts from the AVA and CASA's efforts as they in the defeat of Liz Thompson over in New Mexico. And the last thing in here is, what can you do? First and foremost is, if you are a e-cigarette user, you would want to join CASA. There's also other organizations. There's this group called the Vaping Militia. You could join them. The AVA or SAFATA if you're a business, and the EFVI if you're in Europe. These are all active groups that are supporting the advocacy efforts that are going on. It was kind of nice to catch a little extra advertisement from somebody we weren't even aware of. So I was rather impressed with it. That made me very impressed with the article.
Well, Joe, anytime that you're mentioned is good. Now, this is not nearly as good as the Newsweek article that mentioned you directly by name.
That's true.
That's enough of that shit.
Twice.
That's enough of that shit.
Well knocked.
Wow. What'd you throw in there?
Oh, you were talking about state coffers and things like that. So I put in the link to our blog on Addicts and Junkies, and discusses tobacco settlement money and
that's a good one.
The state's addiction to tobacco money and why they are attempting to tax e-cigarettes because of lack of money in their state budgets because people are quitting smoking, which is awesome.
Yep.
Yep.
It's wonderful.
And a rundown. Did I get through most of ours? What did I miss?
Knocked, you're funny. Did you say Time Magazine?
No, that was Newsweek.
Oh, okay. I just wanted you to say it again.
Guys.
Two different Newsweek articles.
People have a tendency to talk to me. That's all I have to say.
Yep, you're a resident rock star.
Oh, good Lord. No, I'm not.
I'm just glad I know somebody that's big famous.
Yeah, I know, me too.
I'm just a vapor. That's all I am.
Yep.
A little bit of a loudmouth.
I didn't hear either of us disagreeing there, so I guess it's true.
Okay, I'm done with my list. So if you want to throw something in, Knock, we've got a good 35 minutes to go into a direction that you'd care to, or if anybody in chat has anything that they'd like for us to be able to talk about, and you did not have to put that article in there.
Yes, he did. Thank you, Knock.
Don't they go out of print sometime?
Not as long as it keeps getting hits.
Yep.
So sadly, we ran out of juicy content. Which is great. That means that there are a couple things that are continuing to go on right now. There's a thing on Indiegogo, which I'm sad, but I don't know that we were able to get the right people involved. Dr. Farsalinos is trying to fund a study, and the last I checked, which was in the middle of last week, we did not have anywhere near enough money, which this is something that needs to be done, but the vendors are the ones that would benefit the most and should have been behind this.
Which study was that? Is that sub-ohm study?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right now, this is sitting at $16,391, and he's projecting that he's going to need somewhere around $72,000.
Wow.
To perform the analysis, and I mean this is the analysis of e-juice and what happens at different temperatures so that we know the safety risks when we do certain things.
And you know, this is at this point in the game, we are talking about a very narrow scope of users. Okay.
It's a
Overall.
narrow scope, but there are a lot of users that fall into that narrow scope.
Yeah, but a lot of people, when I was asked about this study, I was one of the people who specifically said that this was kind of one that should be on the vendors, not so specifically on the vapors.
Right.
And I want to go a little further into that because this is for those individuals who are pushing the chemical bonds of the juice to extreme limits by subjecting them to extreme heat. Okay, so this is your very low ohm people, or actually at this point we don't really know where that cutoff is. We assume that there could be something that happened when we take the juice up over 500 degrees. But that's just an assumption.
Mm-hmm.
And this study would have helped nail down that number, where that number is in temperature, and perhaps give us a better idea of the dangers of taking these liquids, if there is any danger of taking these liquids above that point. That's kind of what I wanted to focus on here for a second. Is we criticize public health for walking in and going, we don't know. You know, almost every vapor out there is very, very, very adamant to criticize if an ant steps up in front of a city council member and says, we don't know what's in the juice. Well, this was an opportunity where we get to say, well, we know. And industry-wise and as a consumer-wise, we might have missed a shot here that we need. That's kind of what I want to bring out in this, because we really do want to understand what we're doing. And this is not like a lot of people look at smoking as, well, you knew it was bad. Well, everybody had some idea that it was bad, but you still did it. And a lot of us made some very conscious choices when we chose to vape. That we wanted to do something better for our health. And we see it in a lot of people where not only do they choose to start vaping, which some of us, not me, I'm guilty. I did not start exercising, but there are some that did. I'm still too damn lazy. But some people do things, they go to extremes of getting their health checked. They may go get lung x-rays or MRIs or things like that. I hear all these wonderful stories of people finding this using vaping as this moment to take responsibility for their own health. And we get a series of studies that comes out like this that is really keenly focused on finding out just how dangerous one of the more popular aspects of vaping is. And the reason why I say one of the more popular is every newbie vapor that comes in is going to walk in at some time and say, I want to blow clouds.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And we really, really, really should know here. We should know what danger there is. We should know. We shouldn't accept, I don't know, at this point. That's the wrong attitude, I think. And pardon the rant, but that's where I am.
Well, let's put it this way. Friday, I had the opportunity to stop by one of our local vape shops here because the owners of the company happened to be in town. And the manager messaged me and said, on your way home, could you stop by and talk to the owners? While I was in there, 3 or 4 guys come in, and kid behind the counter that's working has got his little box mod. It's one of the Sigelis or one of the the IFV, the new 150 watt mod or whatever, and he's blowing these massive, very thick white clouds. And he tells the guy that comes in, says, I want to be able to do that. And at that moment, I took the opportunity to explain that, I said to him, are you a smoker? Do you smoke, or did you smoke because you wanted to see clouds? And he said, no, I don't smoke, but I want to be able to do that. And we're seeing that type of person that just the only reason they vape is because they want to be a dragon, And we have to know, because whether we're in it for them or not, they're in it now.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
And that, they're there. They're part of us now. We have to take the entire gambit of us. We can't just, say we're going to only fight for the vapors that are vaping to quit smoking. That's not what we're here for. And there's no way for us to actually do it that way. So this study, as much as, because I don't have a dripping atomizer. I don't vape to blow clouds. I vape because I like nicotine, and this is a much better way for me to get it than smoking. But we can't just say we're only in it for the people that vape the way I do.
Yep. And we need, and I think we need answers to those questions. We need answers to as many questions as we can have, because we need to.
Well, especially now that we have this new DNA 40 chip that's out here, that if you have the right wire and the right mod, you can actually control the temperature of your vape. So we need to know whether we need something like that, if we need that technology, so that we can prevent the bad things from happening.
In theory, if Brandon's technology is on par, if everything's right on that, we may have the regulation that we have to prevent certain chemicals from being created, things like that.
Well, and the FDA is going to have this conference next week. And if you look at the list of things that they're going to have in that meeting, a lot of it has to do with variability of temperature, of hardware, things that we've been hearing from since April till now, that the FDA is not going to go after hardware. If you look at that list of information that they're talking about, that they're going to be discussing, that they're bringing in all these experts on, it does kind of look scarily like they may be trying to look at hardware.
Well, when they started right after, it was probably 2 months after the announcement, one of the studies that they commissioned, and I always thought it was kind of foolish, was because of the way they phrased it. They said that they were looking through Facebook and YouTube videos to see how people were increasing the nicotine yield. That's the phrase that they used. And for me, that seems to be an absurd statement. It strikes me as wrong. I mean, you're only going to get as much nicotine as you put into the darn dripper. That's all there is.
But you can burn it more efficiently.
Yeah, but there's the thing, is when you've got a more efficient method of vaporizing, then now you're increasing volume. And you hear people talk about it all the time. The Atlantis is out. What's one of the first things you heard as a comment about the Atlantis?
Oh, well, look, it's a tank, but it gives you clouds like a dripping atomizer.
Yeah.
Robin, what was one of the first things you heard?
It's all about the cloud.
Yeah. You know what the first thing
That's
I heard?
what I heard. It's all about the cloud.
I have to fill it so often. And that's what made me start thinking.
I didn't hear that. Okay.
That made me start thinking, You know,
That tells it.
maybe that's what the FDA was looking for there. You know, it's just one of those things. You got to step back sometimes and look overall at what's going on there. And I think that may be one of the things that they're closely looking at.
Maybe that makes sense.
So, yeah, I was a little disappointed that particular project didn't get funded as well as I thought it should, and from the sources that I thought it should. I guess that's where the bigger disappointment came from.
Yeah, I mean, the just the list of topics that are on this thing. You know, they have a whole heading on device design, e-liquid, and aerosol interactions. You know, there's like 10 or 15 different topics under there. Then, you know, it's and even under the e-liquid and aerosol constituents, there's a discussion about how changing the hardware affects your performance. You know, then they even mentioned dripping. So, you know, from April when they announced their regs until now, they've done some research, because if you read the proposed regs, it seemed like they didn't know about vaping at all. And now all of a sudden they're hitting us with our terms now. They're hitting us with dripping. They're hitting us with, you know, are there maximum temperatures that should not be exceeded for product components? You know, different things like that. And maximum power and wattage for heating e-liquids. So if we had had this study, we would be able to just hand them the study and say, look, we already did it here, boom.
Yeah, many people understood that when the initial regulations were written, that the target for those initial regulations were a product that many of us don't use, the e-cigarette. You know, that little cigarette-shaped e-cigarette that a good percentage of vapors look at and scoff at. That can't be effective. You can't get what you want out of it. I mean, how many times have you heard that?
Well, I never said it can't be effective, because actually I was able to transition simply from smoking to vaping using a Cigalike. It didn't last very long, but it worked for enough for me that I didn't smoke.
I never used one. No, I've never used one.
I used one for 2.5 years. So, you know, and that's something that we need. You know, we have to think about is it's the difference between what they believe and where we are now. And they want to make sure that the market stays clean where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
But the market moves very fast.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Knock, where do you want to go next?
I have no idea.
Oh, come on, you gotta have something. You have to have something in your bag of tricks. We still have 15 minutes.
You're the Lord of the Foo. You can find something.
We you know, here, give me 1 second. Gosh, put me on the spot and
I know.
make my brain work.
That was the
Yes.
intention.
That's exactly the path.
You know, I work well under pressure, just so
Okay.
you
You
know.
do.
And go.
Okay, well, you know, we kind of mentioned it earlier about the EU or the summit, the e-cigarette summit that they had in the UK
Mm-hmm.
very recently, and that several advocates that we know were there.
Yes.
And this was done on the 13th of November. And there is a nice little article in the Pharmaceutical Journal, and it goes through and it essentially breaks down. There's a pharmacist there. There's a guy. He's an advocate. He is a smoking cessation advocate, and he is wanting to know why is it that he cannot promote vaping. And they go through and discuss all the good things of vaping. The vapors are not smoking. It goes through the numbers, the cessation numbers, and he's like, how wonderful would it be if the numbers, the success rates are already better than other NRT products without the support of doctors and pharmacists and those people. How awesome would it be if the doctors could say, hey, you know what? This works for other people way better than Chantix, way better than the patch, way better than gum. Try this. How much better?
Had those numbers, didn't we?
Well, we have our numbers are already better.
Yeah.
Without any support from the medical community. How great would those numbers even be better if the medical community could get behind us? Is essentially what the article's about. And for some reason, it will not let me open it because I have exceeded my number of views of this article. I will put it in so that you can read it. Maybe you can get more out of it. I'll throw it in our Hangout so that you can read it, because obviously I can't read it now. But they talk about Clive Gates in there. They talk about the advocates over there that obviously Alex was there, and a bunch of Americans were there, but they interviewed the English ones because this is an English journal. And if you promise to only read it twice, I'll throw it in the chats so everybody else can read it too.
Go for
it. Because after that, you can't read it. I don't understand why they limit.
It's weird. All right, let's see.
The number of views.
Saying that 30% of the attempts involved used e-cigarettes, making it the most popular method to stop smoking.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good number.
Yeah, and remember, that is without anybody saying try vaping. That's without any medical professional, at least. So that number could be much higher if people that were, and the thing is it specifically says that the people that are trying to use vaping have to really want to quit smoking.
Yeah.
That's the thing is intent.
Well,
if you intend to quit smoking,
at the bottom it talks about how nice it would be if pharmacies and such could promote vaping as or e-cigarettes as a cessation tool. And then I turn around and I look at companies here in the U.S. like CVS. Have you been into a CVS lately?
No. Yes.
Now, when you go into CVS where they used to have the cigarettes, now the only thing that you see now is, ask us how to quit, and they very prominently show their brand of nicotine gum and patches right there beside the cash register now.
Mm-hmm.
So, it irritates me that they feel that their choice to stop selling cigarettes was 100% a step forward, and that they also were inclusive of e-cigarettes. Okay. And what really confuses me is anyone who uses Caremark as a provider. There's some very nasty things that they were bringing forward about nicotine use, but yet Caremark's one of those that uses the Conteen test for proof of non-nicotine use. Well, if you're in the process of using nicotine gums and nicotine patches, you're going to fail the Conteen test.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is my wife and I have the same insurance company through two different employers. My wife's employer put in their contract with the insurance company that vaping is considered the same as smoking, and they have to pay a premium for tobacco use, where my employer is more vape friendly, and they did not include that as part of their policy, and I don't have to pay a nicotine a premium, which is this. It's the same insurance company, but it's based on the rate that they negotiate is based on certain things, and I guess they were not willing to give. My employer was not willing to give. So I guess my rates are a little bit higher. But when you break it down, my company owns over 3,000 facilities. So if you break it down amongst every employer, it's only like a cent or two. But
wow,
it is there. So it's not always the insurance company. It is the employer that's negotiating the contract.
Life insurance. Someone saying they're 3 years and then they submit blood and urine before you get non-smokers' rates. Sultan, do you happen to know if that's a Conteen test or not?
Well, if they're saying blood and urine, which is interesting because just tell them you eat a lot of tomatoes. Say you eat a lot of Italian food and you have a lot of tomatoes in your diet.
A lot of tomatoes. A lot of tomatoes.
Eggplant, Parmesan 3 nights a week. Well,
that's one of the arguments. I had to go find a set of articles on the Conteen test. I read a really interesting series on that Conteen test about false positives and weird results on it because it's a metabolite, not a direct. It's not testing for nicotine. It's looking for the metabolized form.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, if you use a patch or if you use gum or if you use anything, that's going to show up.
Yeah. Okay, last little topic before we head out. Just an opinion thing. So as I've been doing my normal searching around the web, I find that R.J. Reynolds has entered the nicotine gum market, and they did not market it as a recreational nicotine. They actually marketed it as a cessation product. So, wonder if there were any comments on that. What do you think, Knock?
Well, I think that's just another way to incite pharma into stepping into our area if tobacco is going to step into their area.
e-cigarettes from the pharmaceuticals now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it kind of scares me. I think it's only one flavor, and I think it was a mint flavor or something.
Mm-hmm.
No cherry
This is the
crush flavor
Zonic.
from
What's it called?
like Nicorette.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Zonic. Was that the brand you're
That's
looking
it,
at?
yep.
Yeah.
The price point on it's kind of interesting. 10 sticks for $3.99 now.
It's cheap.
It's a lot cheaper than the others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work. It's just, I don't think anyway. I don't think any of that stuff works.
Well, yeah, but in that price range, people will go and buy
Yes.
the Zonic
Yeah, they're more apt to go and try it. Yep.
instead of paying $20 for the other brands.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah. Big time.
Absolutely.
The vaping
Oh,
dog.
thank you, JoJo. They're at 90,000 of the 100K. Wow.
Yeah, I remember
Well, it
they
is
said
a
I
new
had heard
month. I can go
that.
ahead and throw another donation in.
Yay.
So if you haven't been in chat, throw 5 events. Lots of 5s are good.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
2,000 people put $5 in.
That's a lot of money. We're in our last 5 minutes here. Naki, have any last details?
Why do you keep putting me on the spot, man?
Because you're not muted.
I know I keep muting because of the dog.
Oh, I know the trick now. I know the trick.
I heard enough from the dog today.
Get a dog.
Well,
Uh,
I think,
Yeah.
right now, at this point, because I know everybody's kind of got their heads, for the holidays, and they're really not 100% in the game today, but we really, really, really need to keep our eye on the prize, and if we fall asleep now, that's the problem. We have local issues still happening. We have 2015 bills being introduced, and we cannot sit on our laurels. We have to keep alert. We have to, do everything that we've been doing. And actually, with Philadelphia and New Yorkers, they have to be twice as vigilant because New York has already done it to us. They will introduce something at the very last minute, the day of a holiday or the day after or before a holiday, just to make sure that the people that would fight against them don't respond. So everybody keep alert.
Robin, any closing comments?
Just a reminder that Vaping Militia will be in Pennsylvania next weekend, Saturday, which is the 6th at Liberty Vapor. Sunday's in Philly, but we don't know all the details yet. And Monday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon at Azure Vaping in York, Pennsylvania, and that's it.
Keep in mind that in the first 2 weeks of the month of December, a lot of your state legislators will be in their home cities getting ready for the holidays. Also keep in mind, first 2 weeks of the year, they are also usually at home. Good time to make an appointment and go talk to a legislator. Just go in, say hi, get to know them, let them know that you vote and that there are some issues that you're concerned with. At this point, waiting for it to happen is the mistake. We have to be proactive. We have to get out there. We have to start making relationships. And any business owners, same thing applies to you. It's time for you to make that invitation. Take them out to lunch. Not the lunch where you go for a long ride and dump them off in the country. A real lunch where you actually talk to them. And let them know that you're concerned as a businessman, that this kind of stuff is important. And keep in mind, we've always got Facebook. We'll keep you guys updated with everything we're doing. And we may not be here next week, but we'll be here the week after, right before Christmas. So we have lots of things going on in Philly, and a lot of our team will be over there. So we thank you very much for spending time with us on your Sunday, and Please vape polite, vape respectively. Bye.